Okay, so if you know me, you know that I love anything journaling related. So of course, I'm gonna have my own products and I have some cute notebooks. And then I created my own journal and I have three versions of it. And it's just the three things that are important to you, something that you're grateful for, something that you're proud of, something that you dream of, and something that you pray for. Something simple and effective. I also have a new planner too. So go check it out at lifewithfrancy.com/shop. Hello and welcome to Life with Francie podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self-love, self-care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Now, let's get the show started. Today's episode is thanks to Podmatch, an amazing community for podcast hosts and podcast guests to create amazing collaborations like this one. They have tools and resources for anybody in the podcasting world. So go check it out. And on today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Miss Phyllis, who is has a master's degree in psychology and counseling. She co-directed a sexual abuse treatment program called Parents United in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1991, and then went to private practice full time. As a psychotherapist, she treated children, family, couples, and individuals adult for 34 years, and she has worked extensively with abuse and dysfunctional family dynamics, their aftermaths, and some of the most important elements for healing. She is also an author, and I just can't wait to talk to her. So, welcome, Miss Phyllis, to the show. Tell us, what is life with you?
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. Um, yeah, what is life like with me, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, today I'm just working really hard on the marketing of my new book, which is called America in Therapy. But and so I'm basically just retired from my psychotherapy practice, and I'm really focused on writing right now. I live up in the mountains in Taos, New Mexico, and um, besides working on my book, I love nature, and my husband and I are always out hiking and we garden, and I have three grown children and grandchildren, and I'm very grateful for the life that I have. My life started out a little rocky. I had some trauma in my childhood that took me quite a while really to get over. And psychotherapy and doing healing work was really the key to that. So that's why I became a psychotherapist. And that's really the heart of my of everything that I've written, is to try to share what I've learned about what we need to heal. And my latest book is taking what we know about what we need to heal individually and really looking at our country through that and trying to apply that lens to what might help us heal from the divisiveness and escalating violence in America today. And, a lot of the things that people are suffering from, discrimination and really an, imbalanced economy and injustice. There's just a lot of things going on in our country, besides all the good things, all the great creativity and inventiveness and acts of kindness that are going on. There's a lot of people really hurting. And so my mission was to take what I've learned on an individual level and apply it to our country.
I love that. And when it comes to dysfunctional family therapy, mental health, and everything, that's me. That's my jam. I got it all. And that's why I
Mm.
have this podcast to offers tools and resources, so people that are struggling out there have more options, to see. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your story.
Um, you mean my personal story or the book, or I'm not sure which story you're talking about,
If you
or
want
all
to
of
go
it.
straight on how the book came about, that's fine.
Yeah.
You tell me.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that because I've told my story so many times, and basically my story is like so many people's story. It's not anything unique. A lot of us were hurt as children, and we really have spent, many years and dollars and hours trying to retrieve our most essential loving selves underneath the layers of hurt that we received. And not that I didn't get some good things in my childhood too, but there was a lot of hurt in my childhood. And so psychotherapy was really peeling back those layers and really, and I always felt a calling to connect to myself very deeply and to push through what was in the way. And I think that's what most healing modalities and certainly psychotherapy offer people, is a way to uncover the things that hurt them, really reprocess the negative beliefs they took on about themselves, like I'm unlovable, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not smart, or I'm powerless, because we all take on certain kinds of negative beliefs from the hurtful things that happen to us, and really start to empower positive beliefs and positive coping mechanisms. And I would say that my journey, which is an ongoing journey. I think we're on that healing journey our whole lives. It's not like you get there, but you can get out of the darkest places. And I think I hold that hope. I held that hope for many, many people that I worked with, because I was able to experience that myself. And I want to hold that hope for our country and really for the human race, because sort of, as I said, along with all the really good things that we're capable of and that many people do, we're also capable of incredible harm to each other, and the wars and the mass murders and the limiting of resources for people who really need them, and just incarceration, the way that we're doing it in this country. There's so many things that really need to be addressed and healed to stop some of the cycles of pain and dysfunction that are here and worldwide. So the big ahas, just really quick, the big ahas for me were, as I did my own work, I realized how many people were in the same boat as me, who didn't have access to help, who don't get out of the dangers that are traumatizing them. They're stuck in them. They don't have any exit. And what happens to them, and what happens to their children? Because our traumas so often get passed down from one generation to another if they're not addressed, if we don't find escape, if we don't get help if we don't get help to recover ourselves and our essential selves, is what I call it. So that was the first big aha. And then really, from my own experience and working with so many people and so many families, I realized that we, in our larger institutions, whether it's in a school or a business or a community or a state or a country, we still are operating on family dynamics. Some people are in charge. How do they exert their power? What's the effect they have on the people that they have authority over, like parents with their children? If parents are healthy, they're loving, they're kind, they're supportive, they have good boundaries, if they're committed to um, cooperation, if they're committed to seeing the good in, and again, given that we're all imperfect and none of us do parenting perfectly by any means, but if there's a commitment to nonviolence, if there's a commitment to working things out, if there's a commitment to deep respect and honoring of our individuality, then that's a relatively healthy family. And so many families are not like that. And it's not about blame. It's not about, like, there's bad people out there. There's people who've never had a chance to heal, and they're passing their dysfunction on in their own families. And if we don't get a chance, if we don't really, and this is one of many messages that I have, um, I really believe that we have to change a lot about where we place our priorities in our country. I think families are actually the most important resource that we have, our children and our families. And I really believe that's where our money should be going. Our tax dollars should be going to provide parents for help. If parents are not parenting well, instead of blaming them, let's help them. Let's help them break the cycle of their own dysfunction or their own pain that they're carrying on. Let's put our money toward housing, toward education, toward medical, care for everyone, toward really good school systems and childcare. These are the things that create healthy individuals. And the more we have healthy individuals, we have peaceful individuals. And the more we have peaceful individuals, the more we're all safe in this country, and our children can grow up safe. And I know it sounds a little Pollyanna-ish, but it's not, because we know that we can affect some of these changes on an individual level. in one family, in one community, with one group of people. And if we can do it with individuals, we can do it with a country. We just have to really reset our priorities and understand that to the extent that we don't do that, to the extent that we're hurting people, leaving them out, depriving them of the resources that they need, stigmatizing them, vilifying them, incarcerating them with no hope of, with a hope of healing what injured them in the first place. The more we do that, actually, the more unsafe we all are, because we're creating more and more individuals who are acting out their pain in on a societal level, whether they're exploiting people or they're actually attacking people or they're becoming highly discriminatory or they're selling drugs, whatever they're doing. These are symptoms of an unwell family on a national level. And I think we have to see the most acting out among us as the symptom bearers for the ills in our family, not just as bad people who deserve to be hated or locked up. I don't how what's your sense about all that?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree as I am part of dysfunctional family when it comes to biological father and everything like that, and it's hurt people.
Right. That's right.
So it's just, yeah, and that's why I want to have the podcast, to talk about it and get those uncomfortable conversations out there
Yeah.
in order to find the help for mental health illnesses, and what is mental health illnesses and what is because of trauma,
Right.
because we have to separate those and take responsibility. I didn't do it till like my 30s. Now I'm in my mid 30s and I feel a lot better from the healing, but it took like a lot of work. And like you said, it's just still a journey. It's not like
Right.
an end goal. And
Right. Right.
but yeah, why did you write the American therapy?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of the
Why did
question?
you write the
Oh,
American therapy in
yeah.
therapy?
Because I really want to bring those principles of healing, of how do we to our country. Because I actually feel frightened about some of what's going on in our country today, the extreme divisiveness, um, and the threats of violence and the escalation in violence. And yes, it's not everyone, but it seems like what we're being exposed to in terms of what I would call, it's not really news, but the news, the media, um, is feeds that violence and that sense of like we need to target certain people because they're the problem. And that's exactly what abusive families do. An abusive parent targets a spouse or the children or a child and says they're the problem and blames them for their own violence and their own dysfunctional behaviors and gets other people to blame them as well. And I think that same dynamic is going on in our country. So I really, without like blaming anyone or vilifying anyone, because that's really not my purpose. But there's a place where you have to call out what's unhealthy and what's hurting people and what's not working. And to understand that some of these abuse dynamics that we see every day in our offices, whether we're working with an individual adult who was hurt as a child or a child who's being hurt now in some way, or whoever it is, that that we need to address the family dynamic. We don't, it's, the old sort of conception of psychology was there's just sort of messed up people and what's wrong with them and how do we fix them? And now we know that to the extent that they're in a dysfunctional or abusive family, they're going to be symptomatic. And so we have to stop blaming people for their symptoms and try to address the causes of their symptoms, which is exactly what the best psychotherapy does. Um, and one of the reasons why I wrote American Therapy is because if we bring that understanding of psychology to our country, we're getting out of it's a way out of the partisan divide. The politics today is so it's so separate, it's so divisive, it's so antagonistic. And what psychology does, when people come to therapy, they come to heal those wounds. They come to reconnect with one another. They come to make it safe to relate to themselves or to their children or their spouse or their friends or their boss. They come to heal relationship instead of further the divides. They come because of the pain of the violence and divides that they're experiencing. They come, I say it this way, they come to therapy to get out of the wars they're in, not to perpetuate them. It's the wars they're in that are hurting them. And it's the wars we're in with each other in our country and all over the world that are hurting thousands and millions of people and their children. And I think we just have to know that. And I think a lot of people don't know that. I think a lot of people, because not because they're deficient or wrong or bad, but I think a lot of us grew up with the paradigm of there's good people and bad people, there's right and there's wrong, and right is supposed to attack wrong and wipe it out. But what we know from the field of psychology is that we need healing. We don't need more war. We don't need more attack. Um, and people don't get better from being attacked, and their children certainly don't. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And so, I sort of talk about the what happens in an abusive family or a neglectful family, and I go into that in detail. And then I talk about some of the principles of what needs to shift in order for us to take on healing as a country. And they're big shifts. I think we have to really stop targeting people and blaming other people and take responsibility for ourselves. When I was in graduate school, one of the instructors that I had, it was a couples therapy class. And he said this thing I never forgot. He said that the couples in his experience, the couples that he had worked with that did the best, that had the best outcome for their relationship, were the couples in which each person actually took more and more responsibility for themselves and their own behavior and their own motivations and their own beliefs and their own healing. And to the extent that people were able to take responsibility for themselves and their participation in disagreement or conflict, the better off they were and the more likely it was that that couple was going to reunite and thrive. And that principle of taking responsibility for myself instead of this continual blame thing that we all grew up in. Whose fault is it? Who did it first? Rather than what can I do differently that could help heal this? Where could I take responsibility? Maybe my motivations weren't so great. Maybe the way I talked to you wasn't very nice. Maybe I'm triggered by whatever you said because my mother did the same thing or my father, blah, blah. Can I heal that wound in myself? And I'll just say this last thing and then please jump in. To the extent that people heal themselves, and again, it's an ongoing process and nobody does it
Yeah.
perfectly. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. That's the healing process because we're human and imperfect. But what I like to share with people is that in all the years I've been a therapist, the more people are able to heal their own wounds and take responsibility for themselves in the relationships that they have. I have never seen anybody become more violent, more hateful, more divisive, more alienating. The opposite. As people begin to heal their own wounds and take responsibility for themselves, they become more loving. They become more patient. They become more tolerant. And they actually want to help other people achieve the same things. And so, if we can do that as an individual, as individuals and families, then we can bring that to our country because the country is nothing more than masses of individuals and families.
Yeah, for me, it was life changing when I started loving myself.
Yeah,
That it gave not only grace and compassion to others, but towards
that's
myself
right.
as well, because
Right.
we are very mean and it starts with within, you know. uh
100%.
what are the best principles and practices for breaking the cycle of abuse and violence? Is it too late or is there still hope?
Well, I hold that there's still hope because, I've seen people, and myself included, I was in some really dark places when I was young, and I didn't really know that I would ever get through that. And it was having some people outside myself that I could turn to. And I was fortunate in that. I worked with some therapists that were allowed me that freedom and that space and with their own expertise to help me, you know, go into those dark places safely and uncover what was hurting me and move through it. Um, so I think that's what we can offer each other. And you don't have to be a therapist to do that. We can all be kinder to each other. We can all be more patient. We can all listen. We can all have more empathy, more compassion, more understanding of our wounds, and knowing that it's actually when someone cares about you and is loving toward you and compassionate that you can heal. We need each other to heal. Now, I don't think I'm answering your question because I can't remember what it was. So, you want to repeat it?
Just what are the best principle and practices to breaking the cycle of abuse
Right,
and violence?
right. Well, number one is a commitment to nonviolence. I mean, it's sort of like, how do you heal from addiction? You have to stop using. At some point, you have to stop using. So I think committing to nonviolence, no matter what it takes. And I would say this, war is actually easy. Fighting with other people and just going along with your reactions and, letting it all just flood out is actually easy. Committing to nonviolence, committing to being responsible for yourself and examining your own behaviors and your own wounds and healing them takes a lot more strength and a lot more courage than fighting. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They think that, therapy is for weak people, or it means there's something wrong with you, or, you should be able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But it's really not true. Therapy takes a lot of courage because you're really taking full responsibility for yourself. And so some of those practices are certainly it starts with nonviolence, a commitment to nonviolence. And even if we didn't do anything else, if we committed to nonviolence, we'd have a safe world. We
Yeah.
would. But it takes so much extra to actually, carry that forward and actually do it. It's one thing to commit to it, and it's another thing to restrain yourself when you're really triggered and you're really angry or you're really upset with someone. So there's a lot of things. One of them is a commitment to nonviolence. One of them I've already mentioned, which is self-reflection and taking responsibility for yourself, and then really being committed to resolving it with other people, not just walking away. Because we depend on each other here, whether we like to admit it or not. We depend on each other to be safe. We depend on each other to supply us with our daily needs, our computers, our food, resurfacing our roads, fixing our cars. We actually depend on each other. And so, to the extent that we can commit to resolving it with each other, we're on our way to healing our human relations. If it means compromise, if it means, I could let this one go. Let's do it your way because it really doesn't matter that much to me. Or I feel really strongly about something and I need to stand up for it because I really think that it's healthy or wise, but I'm going to stand up for it without hurting you, without assaulting you, without shaming and blaming you. And ultimately, it's a commitment to reconnecting. One of the things I say is, in America, or leaving a relationship peacefully, without violence. Sometimes you can't work it out. Many of us have been divorced. I've been divorced. Sometimes you can't work it out with another person. You don't have the skills. You haven't healed enough. They're not the right person. They don't want to heal, whatever it is. Sometimes we can't work it out with other people. And it's really important for our own sake and the sake of our children to leave those relationships as nonviolently and as peacefully as possible so that we don't carry on the hatred or the blame or the shame or the aggression. Um, but one of the things I think we really need to understand as a country is we can't go anywhere. We're here. There may be a very small segment of the population that could move to another country if it really doesn't work for them here. But most of us can't. And most of us don't want to. Even if I could leave America for some country that I thought was safer or kinder or whatever, I wouldn't because I love America, number one. My life is here. My children are here. I have no desire to leave America. So my desire is to help us work it out with each other. And I think that's where psychology, I think, really has so much to offer, because the commitment of psychology is to healing yourself and working it out with the people that you interact with. And that means the people you don't care about too.
Mhm.
Maybe you don't care about the person who yells at you in the parking lot because you took their space, but that doesn't mean you have to assault them or yell back. It could be like, oh, I'm sorry. That happened to me. That's why I was saying that.
Yeah.
A woman came up to me and yelled at me because I took her parking space, but I honestly didn't see her waiting for the parking space. I didn't do it on purpose, but she came up and yelled at me, and I just said, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I didn't have to
Yes.
yell back. And I've seen people have shouting matches in parking lots. It's
It's
like,
the reaction part. For me,
yeah,
I'm the mail lady during the day, a podcaster at night. And as the mail lady, when you are in an office with so many different personalities
right.
and you see each other every day, you have that thing where you feel a little bit comfortable to go crazy if something
Yeah,
happens. But that reaction part, and I had to do a lot of work and I say I spent 10 grand on my mental health to be where I
right.
am today and got my mental health diagnosis. And that helped me see have a different perspective where now I can choose my battles of if
Right.
somebody's
Right.
coming at me because they're having a tough day, I can stop myself and be like, okay, is that a them problem or is that a me problem? And how am I going to go about it? But there's a lot of self-awareness, there's a lot of
Right.
self-love and self-respect to get to that, because if you are in a dark place and you're in an environment where that is common, anybody can come at you, and
That's
next thing
right.
you know, you're screaming and yelling and fighting, and you're like, what is happening right now? It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right. 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 And I think you said something that was really important, because I think a lot of times when people are just stuck in their wounds and they're stuck in, old role models of behavior that really don't serve, then they don't experience having a choice. Somebody says something and they just fly off the handle, or they start beating themselves up, or they go hide somewhere, or they start drinking, or they do whatever they do. And one of the huge benefits of doing that courageous healing work is that you start to feel like you do have a choice. And that is so empowering in a healthy way. And that's what I'd like to see happening in our country, that I think there's a lot of people in positions of authority who actually are just reactive, and they're operating out of their old dynamics without questioning whether they're right or wrong, and whether they are actually helping anybody or impacting people in a really harmful way.
What changes do you see it could be implemented on a national level to promote healing of our own greater design power struggles and armed hostilities?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. I mean, for one thing, I think that I think we need a department of psychology and I think we need to bring, this is very much shifting where our resources and our tax dollars go. I think it's just tragic that billions and billions of dollars are going into weapons of mass destruction. The only purpose of weapons of mass destruction is to kill more and more and more people. And that is just, if I was just going out and buying guns and I was spending all of my resources in better ways to kill people, you'd say I was mentally ill. But as a country, somehow we allow that and we condone it and we think we need to do that.
Mm.
And so I think we need to really make a lot of shifts. I think we need a Department of Peace, which brings in, there's all kinds of people out there who have already studied nonviolent communication, peaceful conflict resolution. What if we brought that to our government? What if we brought it to Congress? What if we were role modeling for all of America, that when people in Congress disagree and they have different opinions and they have different agendas and they don't like what the other person is saying, there was a facilitator there that was actually facilitating them to talk with respect and listen deeply and reflect back what the other person was saying and take responsibility for their own reactions and their own behavior. What an amazing thing that would be for all of our children and all of us to see that kind of mental health and well-being role modeled from the top down. Um, I think that we need to reallocate a lot of our resources, make therapy and healing on all different levels available for everyone. Um, put more money into education, put more money into higher education to make it available to people who don't have the resources in their own lives. Put money into better housing, put money into healthcare, put money into childcare. This is how you support families. And when you support families, then the parents are not as stressed. Their
Mhm.
children are growing up in a more peaceful environment, and they're more likely to go out into the world and be peaceful, cooperative, and much more highly effective human beings rather than people who are just desperate, to get money anywhere they can because they're not surviving. Um, I mean, we're just missing our greatest resource, which is us. It's us. It's people.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like my listeners to know about you or your story?
No, I'm just really an ordinary person. Honestly, I'm just an ordinary person. I'm on my own healing journey. I will be for the rest of my life. I don't do it perfectly. I don't pretend to do it perfectly. Sometimes I listen to myself and I think, am I practicing that enough in my own life?
Mm.
It's just that constant self-examination and commitment to doing it better. Um, and remembering the things that, remembering, okay, I do have a choice here. How do I want to respond to this? Like you were talking about, what serves me, what serves the people around me. Um, I just try to go out of my way to be nice to the people that I interact with, whether I know them or not. And that's something that we can all do. We can all be friendlier. We can all just be a little more patient. We can all be more appreciative. There's nothing like telling people what you appreciate about them to really foster love and kindness in the world. We all need to hear that we make a difference. That whether it's you say, you look beautiful in that color today that you're wearing. I love that light blue. Or you have beautiful eyes. Or you said that so well. I'm going to remember what you said. Or thank you for taking care of my child so well. Or for whatever, you know. Because we know this in psychotherapy, one of the biggest skills we sometimes have to teach people is acknowledge each other. You know, don't just take it for granted that that person is there and only point out the things that you don't like about what they're doing, which is what we often fall into, right? I don't
Yeah.
notice you until you're bothering me, right?
And in a way, we all want to be acknowledged. Like,
We
I
do.
see you, you see me, like, we can have this moment.
Exactly.
um, where can my listeners find you?
Yeah, please go to my website. It's www.phyllisleavitt.com, and that's PhyllisLeavitt. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. I have lots of interviews on YouTube. I have all kinds of things on my website. I'm on Twitter and the regular Instagram, all those things. But really, and I would, if you're interested in what I'm saying, I go into way more detail in my book, which is called America in Therapy, A New Approach to Hope and Healing for a Nation in Crisis. And you can purchase it on all the major booksellers, Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all those good places. And I'd love your feedback. You're welcome to contact me on my website. I'm, totally happy to talk to anybody who's interested in knowing more about what we're talking about. And then just so you know that if you contact me on my website or sign in for my newsletter, I have a free PDF up now that is called The Six Secrets to Repairing Relationship After Conflict. And some of those things I've talked about today, but I go into way more depth about how you could apply those things in your own life. So you can get that free PDF on my website.
I love that. Thank you so much. And this year I've been asking, what are you grateful for?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my kids and my grandchildren. I'm grateful that I live in a beautiful place. I'm grateful for all the many, many people like yourself who are out there really trying to spread the word of what they think is going to help us as a human race, as Americans, as parents, as kids. There are so many people doing wonderful things to help improve the family environment that we all live in. So I'm just grateful for everybody that's on that track, and my heart goes out to the many, many people that are still really, really suffering and need our help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and being such a lovely podcast host, because you're really heartfelt, and I really feel that.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Life with Francie podcast. You can find it in all major platforms as well as my YouTube channel. You know the drill. Like and subscribe. Help this girl out, and the information of the guest will be in the description of the episode. Hope you have a blessed day. Bye bye.
Thank you.